Expectations are a very important part of the building process. And it's really important that you sit down with your builder at the very beginning and talk to them about expectations. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice that will help you through that process. Don't sweat the small stuff. And a second piece of advice, let your builder sweat the small stuff. That's what you're paying your builder for. That's what our job is, to sweat the small stuff. So I want you to understand that as you're talking to your builder, you may say to them, I want a smooth wall finish. And then when you see the price for a smooth wall finish, you might go, wait a second, that is extraordinarily expensive. Why is drywall so expensive? And it may be that what you said, smooth wall finish, triggered in me a level 5 finish, which is a very high standard in the drywall industry, very expensive to get because it's time consuming. When all you wanted was not orange peel and not knockdown texture on your drywall. So it's really important that you set expectations as you're talking with your builder and communicating to them how you want your house to be, how you want your finishes to be, and ask questions and see pictures. Pictures are so valuable when you are talking about the level of finish that you want. Also, as you're doing things, it is important to know that mistakes are going to happen. Why, you may wonder? Because hundreds and hundreds of hands are going to be touching your house, are going to be building your house. Thousands of components are going to go into your house. You know, think about the plumber who has 5 or 10 people on his crew, the HVAC guy, the framer who might have 12 people. You know, there's almost 100 hands right there in just those handful of trades that I've talked about. And to think that every person is going to be on their A game every day, probably not. Something probably is going to go wrong. But don't worry, your builder's job is to sweat the small stuff. And what we're going to do is at the end of the day, every day, we're going to walk around and we're going to review what the work that was done and make sure it conforms to the agreed upon standards. What are those agreed upon standards, you may wonder? Well, let's talk about that, because quality has a different meaning for everybody. Quality to some people might mean perfection. Quality to somebody else might mean, an ISO 9000 standard. Well, let's talk about sort of the common standards that we have in the construction industry. One is going to be the building code, right? We all have to comply with building code, and building code should be a minimum standard. There's also industry standards. So the way that we frame walls, believe it or not, regionally are pretty uniform. The way a wall gets framed, or drywall gets hung, or plumbing gets run, or roofing gets done. Regionally, those standards are going to apply. And actually, industry standard is a term that would be used in court and would stand up in a court of law. It does have meaning. But understand, what you may call or see done in your neck of the woods is probably going to be very different than the way that we build things here. For instance, if you are building a home in Tucson, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona has caliche, a very, very hard layer of calcified rock below the soil. There's not going to be very many basements because it's very expensive to dig through that hard layer. Here in Cedar City, where we have a lot of alluvial finds, basements are really common. So when someone comes to Cedar City from Tucson, Arizona, and they talk about, I want a 2-level house and I want it to be 3,500 square feet, they may be assuming that's going to be a first story and a second story above it. Your builder here in Cedar City might be thinking main level with the basement. Very different, right? But both people are right because you're just using that regional dialect. So those standards are important because they're standard, right? That's going to align your expectations with your builder's expectations. Make sure that you set those standards. A very important standard for our business are going to be the plans and the specifications. What's in the plans? What's in the written specifications? Make sure you get those written specifications from your builder. The plans may not annotate whether it's a 2x4 or 2x6 wall, so the specs should. Again, it's about expectations. If you're expecting something different than what you get, you're going to be disappointed. So talk to your builder, make sure you understand all of those things. And also understand that there are going to be disagreements. And I'm going to tell you, because I'm a builder and I'm a little bit biased, Most builders are honest, hardworking individuals. Most builders are going to work very hard to solve any disagreements in a win-win situation. And I want you to know that, and I want you to feel that, because things are sometimes going to go wrong in construction because there are hundreds of hands, because there are so many different components. If something comes up, please reach out to your builder right away. Communicate with them. Bring up what your concerns are. I would surmise very strongly that your builder is going to work with you to find a solution that is going to work for everybody. Because oftentimes, and this happens to us all the time, someone's going to come to us and what they're going to see is an incomplete component of the house, and they're not going to understand what they're looking at. It's okay. Call us, because I'll explain to you, this is what it looks like when we're building it. This is what it's going to look like when we're finished it. And I'll bet you that's going to meet your expectations because we've talked and we've aligned ourselves on those already. So how do you get the house that you envision? I think it's really important that you pick the right builder. You've got to pick a builder that you can trust. You've got to pick a builder who communicates and speaks your language. You've got to pick a builder that you like, because if you like them, you're going to want to talk to them. You're going to want to communicate. You're going to want to collaborate. If you pick the right builder, they'll assemble the right team and you'll get the right house, because the builder's job is to sweat the small stuff. It's your job to enjoy the vision. Thank you.